and you start with stowing your brakes. Go ahead and focus in here. This canopy has 3 brake settings. You've got shallow, factory deep, and custom deep. The custom deep, I'm not going to pack them in. For most jumps, if it's slider off, you're going to be in deep. If it's slider up, you're going to be in shallow. So we're going to start there. And what you do is you take the red portion of the line, or the part that's not finger trapped, line that's on your risers through that loop, through the guide ring, and then you take your toggle, put it through there, and up into the keeper. So the keeper holds that down, and then you make sure that the Velcro's made it all the way down, and you take your excess. When I'm doing slider off, I make sure that all the excess goes to the outside. When I'm doing slider up, I do the opposite. Being it's not through the guide ring when I'm slider off, so if I put my hand through the excess when I'm going up to grab my toggles, all I have to do is turn my wrist and it's not on my wrist anymore. If it's through the guide ring, you want it on the excess on the inside, so when you go up and grab your toggle and release it, it doesn't cinch around your hand. So we're going to do that to both sides. Make sure that they're both on the same brake setting. So on this one, it's going to be the middle. And then my axis is going to go to the outside. And you want to use the non-finger trap side as your load bearing side. Goes down there. Let's see it there. This will vary for slider up and different delays that you hit and heights and whatnot. But for generalized use, factory deep brakes is a good place to start. So you stow your excess, then you grab your 3 line groups like you would any other canopy, and you do your standard Pro Pack. This one happens to be an OSP Ultralight 205, so it is a very small canopy. It's got a little bit shorter lines. It's ultralight fabric. Still want to do your line check to make sure that all of your line groups are good. Take your nose, same as you would on a skydiving canopy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So take all of those guys. What I do is I spread the canopy out like this, so I've got A's, B's are over my shoulder, C's and D's are over my left hand. Shake it. Take your whole nose, put it in your crotch. Now with base canopies, most of the time, your center cell is a different color. And the reason why I keep those separated is because it makes going through that to get to your B line set a lot easier, and then you don't have to count. 8 lines. So there's your A's, your B's. This is pretty standard. So then, once you get your Pro Pack done, we are fighting wind, so bear with me on that. Take your tail, bring it up just to your nose, or to the bottom of your A line. And kick your bridle out of the way. Take your nose, you swipe it over to one side, and then you just gently flop it down. Then we start on the actual pack. First, you want to make sure that your line groups are even. If it makes it easier for you, what you can do is you can actually take another big clamp, make sure these are all even, and then you can just put a big clamp on them, which I'm going to do just for this video, just to make it easier. You don't necessarily need to do this. It's more so it's windy, so I'm going to do it, and this way you know how to do it. The other side of it is you don't want to tie these together in case you forget it. This you're not going to forget. It's a massive ass clamp. So then your lines go up there. I got to grab my packing tool. So then you come up to the top of your canopy. I use 4 packing clamps on my usual pack job, not counting that one because I don't usually do that. So then you start at the bottom and you reef your nose. So on this one it's got a ZP nose, so I just pull from the top of the ZP, open up the nose, and count as I'm doing it. So we've got 2, 3, center cell's red, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Then I come up here and grab onto the load tapes, and I put all the load tapes so that they're all even. And that's where I start my pack job. So they're all even, they're all in my hand. Get all the excess, ZP, F111, whatever your canopy's made out of. And about 6 to 8 inches in is where I put my first clamp. Then you count your first 3. Nose. So your center nose. And the other 3 go over onto one side. These 3 come over onto this side. Then you can stand on your clamp there and you do your first 3 cells, which in this case they're all black. The center cell is red, so we've got 1, 2, 3 line attachment points. You make sure to grab all 3 cells and pull them out to the side here. So you got your 3 and do a couple of flops. So that right there takes care of that. Then you go into your center cell. You pull your center cell all the way up, just following the seam so that it's in the center. And there's your 4th tab. So then you take all 4 tabs. Once they're all even, clamp those, and you can step on those. So that gets that part. Then you do the same thing to the next one. So you've got 1, you've got 2, we've got 3. Take all those, make sure you've got all the fabric to the outside. Give it a couple of flops. Take your center, and you dress your center cell the same way, all the way up so that it's in the center. Clamp those guys. So now you've got those 2 line groups. You can step on that and do it one more time. You've got 1. There's 2 somewhere hidden in here. Here we go. So you got 2. And then you've got 3. Now, this may vary depending on the way that you pack. If you are packing in deep breaks or shallow breaks, it can change the way that this last tab hangs. So this one's going to be a couple inches shorter than the other 2. That's alright. And it'll be even more short if you have it in the factory deep. But everything else is the same. You still dress your center cell. Your center cell and the other 2 cells should match up lengthwise, depending on the canopy. So then you clamp that. Once you've got that clamped, you can go up here, you can take your stabilizer, pull your stabilizer out to the side, and then just take all of this fabric that's in your tail, and you want to get all the fabric to the outside of the pack job. Then you come to your center cell and your tail pocket, and we're going to switch over to the other side. Take this whole lump, throw it over, and you start over on this side. So you got 1, 2, and 3. And once again, we're fighting wind, so I apologize. Like this. And you match up these 3 with the first 3 that you had from the other side. So you got 7. 7 now right here. And if you look, you step back for a sec, you can look and see that you have 1, 2, 3 on this side, 1, 2, 3 on this side, center cell all in the middle. And they all should line up with that nose clamp that you have in the middle. Okay? So then you do the same thing to the next group. 1, 2, and 3. I kind of chucked that guy off to the side, so that way you have all 7 there. And then you dress your center cell again. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 in the middle. And then you do the next one, which this one's going to be as off as the other side was, unless your brakes aren't stowed the same, which they should be, but it'll give you a chance to double check it. See, all 3, flop it, pick up these guys, and they should all be pretty much as equal as the opposite side. Then you dress your center cell. Then you can start actually doing your dressing of everything. So you come down here, might want to come from the other side. Grab onto your stabilizer here. You want the line, the seam, to go straight down the center of your pack job. You can flip this line attachment point over and you just pad it up. Same thing with the next one. So you've got fabric to the outside, seam that's right here, running in the middle. The next one, depending on your canopy, this may differ. So on this one, it doesn't have a line attachment point there, but it does have a seam, so you run the seam up. And then the next one does have a line attachment. Once again, run the seam up, all the fabric to the outside, and then usually that's about the end of them. They'll have usually 4 to 5 line attachment points on the tail, or control lines on the tail. But you still run seam in the middle, fabric on the outside, all the way up. So then this side's dressed and you flip over, you do the same thing, which if you didn't get a good look on the first one, so you got stabilizer poking out the side, seam in the middle, this is the bury the tail method, Mark Tilley, and it stages your openings so you're less likely to get a line over. Basically all this that gets dressed in the tail will be totally buried inside the pack job when we're done. So now the tail's dressed, it looks pretty symmetrical. You got your stabilizers sticking out to the side. Then we're going to start dressing our actual cells. So come here. Those are all even, we know that. So then you start with your A's. So you've got 4 line attachments for your A's, and then you've got 1, 2. Now on this canopy it's weird because they have this internal stabilizer. So you got 3 and 4 which are hidden. So you take your A's, put them into the center, and then you swipe all your fabric to the outside. A's in the middle, now B's in the middle. Fold that up. Now you go to your C's. So you've got still 2 hidden because of the internal stabilizer on this canopy. Not all canopies have this. Swipe all your excess fabric to the outside, lines to the inside. So then you've got 1, 2, 3, and 4 fabric to the outside, lines to the inside. Now, for example, this canopy does not have that internal stabilizer, so it's a little bit easier. You can see all 4 line attachment points, they all look the same. So then we're going to do the same thing to the other side. You take your 1, 2, 3, and 4, dress your fabric to the outside, lines to the inside. 1, 2, 3, and 4 here. Fabric to the outside, lines to the inside. Leaf out of the pack job. 1, 2, 3, and 4 here. Fabric to the outside, lines to the inside. Get the trend. So then everything all nice and evens up. So now it's all pretty much dressed. And come down here. If you have any spaghetti in your lines, you can grab onto your clamps and gently give it a tug. That'll take all that. Then you come down. First you make sure that on your tailgate, so on this canopy there's two different tailgate settings depending on my brake settings. It's in the right one because it's below the tail. You have to make sure that you have a rubber band on that tailgate. You can use a tape gate design. I don't like using tape gates. They're less reliable and less calculated. So I just take one of the little tailgate rubber bands, Lark's head it on so that it stays there, and then make sure that that's in the center. Then you come down here. Depending on the base canopy that you have, this will be set up with either red tail, sometimes it'll be all the same color lines. So you want your brakes, and then you want your inside C's. So these are the most internal C's. Those are your friendlies. So then you grab those in this hand, and then these on this finger, and you just walk them all the way up, never letting them go, so that you don't get them separated. Once you get up here, you can drop the black lines, or the rest of your lines, put it that way, and then you take your tailgate, and you make sure that it wraps all the way around all of your lines that are red. And I usually do 2 wraps, 2 to 3. So that's all centered there. That's there. And snuggle those guys down. So that's all taken care of. Now, we're going to go up to the top of our pack job, and we're just going to loosen this clamp enough to just get the center cell tab undone. Once you get the center cell tab undone, you can redress your tail here so that it all lines up again, like that. Then you bring that tail pocket all the way down to the bottom. On mine, I use a single small rubber band. So you take all of your lines, take a bite the size of your hand, and you can pull the pack job towards you. It's not going to hurt anything. So then you have all of your lines there. Put your knee on the tail pocket to hold it in place. And since I use a small rubber band, your primary stow here only requires 1 wrap. If you have a bigger one, sometimes it'll require 2. And then you take your whole primary stow or your secret stow, tuck it away into the hole on the bottom of your tail pocket. Now I just had a question today actually about what to do with your tail now that it's all set up. So come around, actually you can probably just be directly above. So this is your center cell. These are your stabilizers. They're the only things that are that color. Take your stabilizers and you start rolling your whole tail so that it's buried. So your whole tail gets buried all the way down so it's the same exact size as your tail pocket, all the way up. So that's most of your pack. Next, you can come down and take the stakes out or untie your pack job however you want. And now would be the point where I would put in my closing loops so that you can close the container. On this one I start with the bottom. I don't like this container specifically. It's got bottomless corners which are pointless for my kind of jumping. It's all nice and open, flat pack tray. Then we can come up and just take a seat on your canopy, right above the tail pocket, and just lay back and get all the air out. Scoot yourself up, and you can open up your tail pocket. And when you're doing this, double check your Velcro, make sure that your Velcro is in good condition. You don't want what's called line dump. That can cause tension knots and all sorts of stuff. Go ahead and take the lines, pulling them up all at the same time, and you want to start making loops. So it doesn't matter if you twist it or whatever, unless you like do a whole bunch of crazy stuff. But it doesn't all have to be absolutely perfect. But you're trying to make smaller circles all the way down, and then you can take your finger and split it when you get to the very end, and you take this riser group, lay it on this side of the primary stow, this riser group on this side of the primary stow. So then that's all nice and orderly. Start by closing your tail pocket right by the stow so that that gets lined up right. And you're going to want to do those first on both sides. This tail pocket closes one way. There are a bunch of different ways that they can close. If you've got the new Apex canopy, it's just a hole and you pull it through the hole. And you want to make sure that your Velcro is mated as best it can be on all three sides. You can take this stupid thing off. That's not even necessary. So, and you lay back down. All of your clamps should be stabbing into your back. So now you've got a nice, well-organized pack down. You do your first reduction fold, which is just the size of your cell to the middle, or to the edge of your tail. And then you put your hand in the middle and fold this the rest of the way in. And then you can hold that down with your knee. And you want to make sure it's a nice even fold. And then you'll see part of your nose sticking out the side here. So evenly pressure on that. Do the same thing on the opposite side. Reduction fold number 1. Reduction fold number 2. So then you take your top clamp off the highest one and you clamp that right on the very top. Take your second one down and you clamp it a little bit further down. So that's all taken care of. Your nose should be pretty much even. I mean, this one's not the greatest that I've done, but it's not that big of a deal because you address that shortly. And then you roll, this is called a tilly fold. You roll the sides of it up so that it takes up less room in the pack tray. So those are rolled off to the side, clamp, clamp, nose sticking out both sides. Then you come here and you dress your risers. If you do this now, it makes it easier than if you do it once it's already in the container. You still go through it once it's in the container, but it's much easier to do this way. Lay it down so it's all flat and symmetrical. Take a hold of all of this, lift the whole thing up, put it down, and see how the toggles come out to the side? That's what you want. If it comes out underneath, they get squished. If they come out on the side, they just get laid like this, so they're still big grab toggles and you're not wasting what they're made for. So you can dress your risers, but they usually don't need that much if you do it that way. Take off your first clamp, so that's number 1. Hand right here at the top of the container. Make sure you're at the top of the container and fold that all the way down. Now in this case, this canopy is not very big, so it's not going to require as many folds and whatnot. So you got one clamp off here. Now we start on the nose. So you've got your 3 cells on the side, 3 cells on this side, center cell. What I do is I roll these on either side to stage the opening. So I roll them and I make sure that it rolls it all the way down. And I roll them pretty, not super tight, but tight, so that they're equal on both sides. Then you take your center cell and you dress it around each side. So basically it looks like the man in the canoe right here. That's what you're going for, is the vagina look. Go ahead and look at it from the other side. So So basically, here's your man in a boat. Then you stop that at the bottom of your pack job. So that's 2 clamps, that's 3 clamps, and then your 4th clamp, which is underneath right now. You take that guy off, and then you do your last fold up, which in this canopy's case isn't much. Then you can start to close your container. So when you go to close your container, you don't want to roll it to close it. On this one, so you just fold those up on. This one has bottomless corners, which I hate. If your canopy doesn't, or if your container doesn't have bottomless corners, then you don't have an issue there. Not that these are too big of an issue. So what you want to do is, as you're going to close it, whichever way your container itself closes, because they do close differently. This one closes right to left when you're standing on top of it. So it's all nice and pushed up right there. You don't have to roll it. Same thing here. Put your hand down in it. And there's the bottom. Now on this one, I pack it with my pins reversed. So I have it a little bit of a different pin orientation. So you're gonna have it so that the bottom pin goes actually into the bottom pin, so it goes down to the BOC. In this thing's case, I pack it differently. So we're gonna do that differently. But pretend those are the right way. And then up here, you can dress your riser covers. So those are away. Take your closing loop. Go through here. This part's pretty standard on all the rigs. Same thing, you're gonna hold it down with your hand rather than roll it. As you pull it tight, push the canopy so that it stays flat in the tray and doesn't roll. And then you're pretty much done. The only difference is the pin orientation that you're going to have on your rig versus this rig. And there's going to be some minor differences, like type of canopy, different types of attachment points, things like that. But there's your slider off pack job.